Hello and welcome to the countdown to The Force Awakens. In the weeks leading up to the release of Star Trek? Hello and welcome to the countdown to The Force Awakens. In the weeks leading up to the release of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, I'll be taking a look at an episode in the Star Wars saga. This week is Episode 6, where I look at Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Now, before I go any further, I want to let you know that there will be spoilers discussed from The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, so if you have not seen either of these classic films, you might want to stop now and come back later when you have, so you can pick up in the countdown and let's reminisce. So, let's rewind the clock. 1982. It's been a couple years since The Empire Strikes Back, and we've been left wondering what's going on in the Star Wars universe after the cliffhangers that were laid upon us at the end of Empire Strikes Back. Darth Vader reveals to Luke that he's his father. Han Solo is frozen in carbonite. Boba Fett took him away to where? Our heroes are broken apart. The Empire has beat the rebels. And what are they going to do to fight back? We're left with a downer ending. What's going on? It ends in a hopefulness. And now we've got to wait 3 years until we find out what happens. So, summer of 82, I believe, or maybe late 1982, the original Star Wars was reissued in theaters with a trailer. The first footage that we will see from the new Star Wars film, which at the time was known as Revenge of the Jedi. So, that was our first introduction to what the new Star Wars film was going to look like. But as we got close to release in May 1983, the film eventually was changed to Return of the Jedi. Now, back in the early 80s, there was no such thing as the internet. And for fans like myself, young fans especially, I think I was only 12 at the time of Return of the Jedi, the only way fans like us can get information is from magazines. And magazines like, for me, like Starlog and Fantastic Films. And I think even Cinefantastique was definitely one of the ones I would pick up. And Preview Magazine, spelled Prevue, was a magazine I would read. And then there's other ones like Fangoria and stuff like that. But I would and comic books. I would depend on those for our news. And as we got closer and closer and closer to the release of Return of the Jedi, nobody really knew what this new Star Wars film will have in store for us. And it was quite exciting. So, I must confess, I did play hooky. I did play hooky back in May of 1983 when I went to the very first showing of Return of the Jedi with my mom. And it was at the Eric Morristown Mall in New Jersey. And I always remember the line at the mall went from one side to the other. And I'll always remember that there was an usher who walked the line and was asking if anybody in line was there to see Blue Thunder, the Roy Scheider helicopter action epic from John Badham. And of course nobody was there in line, so we were all waiting to see Return of the Jedi. So I went in, and here we are. The excitement was palpable. The audience was applauding like crazy when the Fox logo came up and the Lucasfilm logo came up. Everyone roared when Star Wars came across. And this was the first and only time I remember ever seeing a Star Wars film, including the prequels, Clone Wars, or even the originals, that I heard the entire audience read the opening crawl. The entire audience read off the opening crawl and cheered at the end. We were all totally excited because this is the last one. This is the one where we've been waiting for. This is the one that answers all the questions. This is the one where we hopefully beat the Empire. This is the last Star Wars film. And we were excited. So in 1983, I was floored. I was totally thrilled with Return of the Jedi. I was so excited by it. But as a 12-year-old, I did have a few complaints. I'm sure the first thing you're going to think is I had issue with the Ewoks. I did not have issue with the Ewoks. The only things that really bothered me about Return of the Jedi was, one, how Lucas so easily disposed of Boba Fett, who I thought was the coolest villain ever, and he was just thrown out, just discarded. as a butt of a joke, and I wasn't too big on that. And the other one was that they were going after the Death Star. I'm like thinking, but they already beat the Death Star. Why did they have to go after another Death Star? Come on, for a 12-year-old to start questioning story, that might be problematic. But because it was so exciting and so fulfilling, I totally looked past it. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and for the longest time, I considered Return of the Jedi my favorite film of the franchise. I think one of my default explanations was because it was the last one, so of course it's got to be the best. But as time went on, it's like, yeah, Return of the Jedi is one I got to watch again and again and again and again. I definitely think I watched Return of the Jedi more than I watched Empire Strikes Back. But as time went by, I grew fonder of Empire Strikes Back, and now declare Empire the best film in the entire franchise. But Return of the Jedi was just a lot of fun. The excitement going into it is very reminiscent of how I felt, and which I'm sure many other people felt with The Phantom Menace. But unlike The Phantom Menace, we were not at all disappointed with what happened in Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi was written, the story was by Lucas, but the screenplay was written by Lucas and Lawrence Kasdan, which is a big deal. And it turns out to be really great. We get all the answers we were waiting for, and some further drama regarding the Skywalkers. And just so many memorable moments in this film. Our first meeting of Jabba the Hutt, who knew what Jabba the Hutt was going to look like, and feature some amazing practical effects with Jabba. That was fantastic. It totally blows away the CGI Jabba for sure, and all the crazy creatures we were introduced to in Jabba the Hutt's palace. And then you have I guess another complaint was that the unfortunate passing of Yoda, it just seemed like a little too soon to die that soon, but that's all right. And then of course there's the speeder bike chase scene, which was like awesome. And then of course we had the grand finale of the fight over the Death Star on Endor and in the Emperor's throne room. We are introduced to the Emperor, and he is a vile villain that we absolutely love to hate. And Ian McDiarmid really brought life to that character, and the fights that results between Vader and Luke as the Emperor just sits there cackling joyfully as these two father and son are brutally attacking each other to the death, if possible. But Return of the Jedi is a lot of fun. For me, it is the weakest of the three, but not to say it's bad. It's quite enjoyable, but compared to the other two, it doesn't compare. But still, Return of the Jedi on its own is a lot of fun. And there's a lot going for it, and it's still an enjoyable film. Now, Return of the Jedi, like the other two films, was a victim of the special edition, and there were a lot of sequences added into the special edition that really irked the hell out of me. One of them in particular was the Jedi Rock sequence that really, really, really grates you. So that's definitely one sequence of anything I would totally jettison from the special edition. But other than that, it kind of cleaned things up, and there's the unfortunate adding of the mouth to the Sarlacc, which didn't need that. And maybe some minor details. There's some people have issue with the loss of the Nub Nub song at the end of the theatrical Return of the Jedi, which I loved, but I also like the new ending of Return of the Jedi, which makes the defeat of the Empire universal. The impact is felt across the universe, across the galaxy, and other places that we've been before, and knowing that the Empire's oppression has ended, and that all of these people are thrilled and excited. And then that was our first viewing of Coruscant, and tease of the prequels. And of course, George being George couldn't stop meddling, and then we got the special editions of the eventual Blu-ray releases, and unfortunately he has that edition of Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost at the end of the DVD Blu-ray release of Episode 6. So that was kind of a misstep, but my card. We still have our memories of what it was, and you can still fall back on those memories to fill in the gaps that unfortunately were laid before you. But again, as a kid, I had issues with the fact that they were fighting over the Death Star again. But the Death Star battle is great. There was probably one of the great visual effects scenes I always remember is when Lando and Nindub are flying the Falcon, and then they're flying towards the Star Destroyers. This is after they found out they're in a trap. And they're flying toward the Star Destroyers, and then they cut to the cockpit view, and you see all these TIE fighters flying towards it. And then the cutaway is to the exterior, and you see all these ships flying all around the Falcon. That was probably one of the most complex and effects-laden shots. From what I understand, each element had to be filmed. So that one sequence probably filmed like 50 times just to put each element into the frame. So that was just amazing, amazing stuff. But there's just so many key moments, like the final lightsaber duel between Luke and Anakin. It was just fantastic. I remember when when Vader taunts Luke and says that he's going to convert his sister, and then Luke lashes out, and the operatic score that kicks in from John Williams, where he realizes this is the moment, this is where he's going to finally beat Vader, and then in the process we discover that he's edging and ever closer to the dark side, and then he says, "No, I will not turn to the dark side," and then we see the eventual turn of Vader back into Anakin Skywalker when he dispatches the Emperor. But again, in the special editions, those kind of change a little bit here and there. So, what can you do? Lucas says it's his film, so he can do what he wants. So, but in the grand scheme of things, Return of the Jedi is a very satisfying conclusion to a trilogy. Not on the impact of, say, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, but it's still a very satisfying, not just an end to a trilogy, but could have been, at the time, considered the end to a franchise. Because before we discovered about Episode 7, Lucas swore that the prequel trilogy was it. There was only 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. So 6 felt like a solid conclusion to the entire franchise, if that were to be the case. But thankfully it wasn't, and Episode 7 is just around the corner. So Return of the Jedi, back then, when I was a kid, I gave that thing a 10 out of 10. That was on cloud 9. I was so thrilled. I remember when Darth Vader took the Emperor and threw him over. I stood up and cheered, clapping, and then my mom pulled me back down in my seat. So back then I gave it a 10 out of 10. But nowadays, as I gotten older, Star Wars was a 10, Empire is a 10. I would have to give Return of the Jedi a 9. It doesn't have the impact as the original two, but still a lot of fun. But it just, for me, just lacks the originality that Empire and Star Wars had. And, of course, nowadays, I find the Ewoks maybe just slightly big grading, but I can tolerate them much more than I can a Gungan, that's for sure. So, what say you? Where in the canon of Star Wars films does Return of the Jedi rank for you? For me, it is the third best in the series. The order being 2, 4, wait, I'm getting so confused right now. I'll just say my titles. The best in order for me from 1 through 6 is Empire, New Hope, Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace. So that's the order for me from best to worst. So Return of the Jedi is right in the middle of the pack, but definitely far superior to anything in the prequels. So what do you say? Do you feel the same way about Return of the Jedi? Is it your favorite, your least favorite? What did you like? What didn't you like? What was your favorite? What were your favorite scenes, or what were your least favorite scenes? I'd like to know. So please comment below. If you like the countdown to the Force Awakens, please hit that like button. And if you subscribe to my channel, please do if you haven't already. And that way you can stay on top of my further countdown to the Force Awakens, which continues next week with a preview of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, which will then eventually be followed days later by my review of J.J. Abrams' Star Wars The Force Awakens. So until next time, my friends, may the Force be with you.